Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Protecting Your Radius podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Downs. We are doing our March, April 2024 update here, kind of giving everybody what's going on over at Radius Gate and Fence Company. I have my good friend, Mr. Randy Ward, in the studio here this morning. Randy, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, better than I deserve.
We're going to get right to it, Randy. We got a lot to talk about, very little time. First and foremost, just have to make the big announcement to everyone that Mr. Randy Ward has been fired from Radius. This occurred back at the beginning of March. I just, brought Randy in one morning, met him for breakfast, said, I don't think this is working out anymore. And told him, you need to get out. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So tell Judy. Is that how that went?
Well, it's not exactly how I remembered it, but we can frame it that way. I don't care.
No, whatever. So, because all of y'all have your hands in the pie too often, everybody's been throwing out a million offers to Randy since he started with us in November of 2023, and finally one came through that was lucrative enough that it was just something we couldn't pass up. But we wanted, Randy, I know you and I have talked a lot about offline about this, but I think there's a lot of things we can share about where we're at as a company, as Radius today, and some of the struggles that we're having and some of the struggles we're seeing. And we're not talking about business struggle, like incoming leads and all this stuff. Sure, okay. The phones are slow. I just told you that a minute ago. Whatever. But we're having great success.
Right.
Because of the team and everything. But when I hired you, I asked you to team up with me under the guise of like knowing your capabilities, your talents, your experience, bringing someone on, kind of like what I did with Donnie, right? Bringing someone super high level that could bring all these things to the table. And our first 24 hours together, right? We had you and Donnie had like a strategic meeting. We set up all these plans and everything. And then day 2 came. And the one thing that I most definitely did not want to happen was you got sucked in to the whirlpool of day-to-day fence and gate operations. Just day-to-day construction woes. You were immediately sucked in, and we never looked back.
Yeah, we've talked about that. It was so crazy. We had such a great planning section. And then we were going to get right after it the next day or the next Monday, and then it was the next Monday, then it was the next Wednesday, then it just then as everybody knows in the fence business, like you said, I mean, it just happened. I mean, we just never. And then when we had time, we didn't take the time because that happens, right? We're just decompressing on those days sometimes, and but I think we both learned a ton from this experience.
Sure.
We seem, like I've told you a million times, this was kind of one thing I want everybody to be crystal clear. I loved my time here with Radius, and guys, if Nathan offers you a job, take it. He's a great guy to work for. He's really a good dude. Him and Donnie are amazing. But I'll tell you, one of Nathan's what he's really good at is one of his weaknesses. And and plus, guys, this is totally off the cuff. We didn't plan anything on purpose.
Yeah, Lord knows what we're about to say, so buckle up, kids.
But I mean, he is so good at what he does, and he's like 99% of business owners, he just does it himself. He does it, and he's so overwhelmed. And Radius is at that point. They need to add some people, but it's how, and It's who, and it's when, and it's they're doing great. I mean, I envy his business model and what he's doing. But the other cool thing about Nathan is in Radius Fence and Gates, it's so cool, Radius Gate and Fence.
Yeah.
Is he's got his own way. He's got his own style. And I want him to continue to embrace that. I think he does need some rails, and he's getting some help in those areas. And we continue to talk. We've talked almost every day.
Yeah, just about.
You know, since I've been gone 2 weeks. But just he's continually scheming and planning and selling, and he is a selling machine. Just got to get these other little parts involved. And as most of you guys know, even a guy as smart as Nathan Downs, that's hard. It's really hard. Those are crucial decisions. You make some decisions that you think are going to work out. They don't always work out. You got to pivot. You got to change, and it's disappointing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But if he knocks on your door, you should listen. It's a great opportunities over here at this company.
Yeah, we're definitely growing, as Randy knows, and it's growing pains. I think you said it really well there, because there's so many things that are happening and so much day to day that if you look at the load of opportunity and then the load of expectation, it is extremely high, right? And as soon as I talked to Randy and found out that Randy was going to be leaving about a month ago, I think it was like the Monday morning we were going to have that conversation. Sunday night, I knew in my heart that it was done, right? And I was sitting at home, and I was just sitting there in silence for a minute and asked the Lord. I was like, what am I going to do? You know, because I don't want to be a failure. You know, I mean, and everybody always asks, like, you know, one of my buddies who's been on the podcast before, Eric DeBell, like, we talked about this 20 years ago. I've learned so much from Eric over the years, just about business and leadership and stuff like that. But Eric, like, I remember him telling me, since he's a little bit older than me, I remember him telling me the drive that he had when he started his business was 100% from the fact of he just wanted to be somebody and prove his dad wrong, right? And so I didn't know my dad, right? My dad died when I was a baby. But deep down at the core of everything, that's the truth, is that I don't want to let my father, that I never knew and won't ever know in this life, right? You know, I didn't want to let him down, or I don't want to be a disappointment, you know. So now I look to my wife, you know, I look to Ashley and my kids and stuff, and I don't want to be a failure. But you have these moments in business that we all go through. And even when you know so much, and this is something I told Randy right before we got on, I was like, I would challenge a lot of people. Most people haven't really invested the amount of time, effort, and energy that I have into reading, into growing, into doing different trainings, traveling all over the country to do all these different things, right? You know, you've done that. Your son's done that. You know, I look at someone like Kyle Sullivan, like some of these, it's a very rare breed that really gets it. Now, I'm excited watching people online recently that more and more people are starting to really get that, but they're going to be the business leaders. They're the people that are like taking the next steps to be the future of whatever industry or whatever group or organization they're in charge of. But I'm sitting back thinking, even with all this knowledge, you've seen it, Randy, like right in the face of it. You can still make so many mistakes. Even when you know the right thing to do, it is so easy to make mistakes or to veer off the path of where we're trying to go. And, you know, I think that goes back to a lot of the things that all the consultants are talking about out there. Why is it important, which I've said, you know, for forever since I started the podcast, you know, why do you have to have a coach? And whatever aspect of your life you want to grow in, having a coach. So once Randy said he was leaving, that revelation I got speaking to the Lord was immediately, you need a coach in the business. You need a consultant. But specifically, like I told Randy, from the standpoint of your systems are not as airtight as you think they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know the systems aren't where they're supposed to be. I have an expectation they fall below that. So there's a value gap there. well, how do we get that? Well, I immediately said, of all my friends that do this coaching thing and all that stuff like that, there's one person that's old school, that's got the bread and butter, that loves systems, that's super structured, which is not me. That's Tony Thornton and Thornton Fence Consulting Group. And so I reached out to Tony almost in the same moment that Randy and I were sitting down to have our discussion about the future. And so we've since hired Tony. He'll be coming in here soon, and he's working with us on the system side. And me, so again, being transparent, I had Randy, you were running the gate side. So what I had tried to do was split the gates off from the fence. Donnie and I do the fence. Randy handles all the gates. And then we start going from there. That was my brilliant idea after our strategic plan. And it didn't work because what had happened was the same thing I already mentioned. You got sucked into the day-to-day. All of a sudden, Randy's doing service calls and installs. And I'm like, this is not what he signed up for. It's not what I signed you up for. So we're going, what are we doing? We're just, we're down in the mud instead of, working on the foundation and the structure and all these things like that. We're still doing dirt work and trying to figure out where we're, hey, what are we building?
But we're a small business, and that's what happens with a small business. You look at, well, we could hire this guy to do that, but good grief, I've got a couple hours, I can go do this. Right. And it's just, Nathan does it on another level, I do it on another level, and that's, the one thing that I've always admired, and I told him this morning, is most of us that were fencers, when we started our companies, we went out there and built fence. We went out there and put in gate operators. We did it till we couldn't do it anymore, and then we got help. Well, Nathan was smart enough to go, that's not my strength, and so he found people to do that. That's one of my faults, and I'll be the first to admit it, is I just jump out there and do it myself. I'll just do it. Don't worry about it. You call somebody, they can't get to it. If they can't get to it, I'll just go do it. And we got some great subs. And but I got to leaning on one who's an ex-hunter, and he's great. But he couldn't do everything. It just, there's not enough of them.
Yep.
And I would just run out there and do it. Or I'd, and guess what? I'm a lot slower than I used to be. And it was just, and that was shame on me. And Nathan both. We both just got in the middle of the fence world. That's just what happens. So I think this is a great reset opportunity, and I think getting his SOPs. Tony will make you get your SOPs, right? And he is going to come up with your hiring structure. And we talked about that today about this job description. It's just what do we do? A guy's a warm body, his heart's pumping. If he can show up every day, you're hired. Right. And we'll figure it out. But the other side of it is the training. And in a small business, we just heard Robert and Tony on, Dan Blanc's podcast. It was amazing, how they talked about the hiring process. And also I recommended the EntreLeadership podcast to Nathan last week. It was great with Dave Ramsey and Pat Glicioni. And it's how we all want to do it.
Right.
But when there's 3 or 4 of you and not 50, when your revenue is X and not, when it's 7 figures, not 8 figures, it's a different process,
Yep.
And just those growing steps and just realizing where we are now and just reset and start taking those steps to get to the next level again. I don't feel like this was a failure. I feel like it was a really good learning experience. We did a lot. One thing I think you did realize is when I took all that side of it off your table, right? It freed you up to grow more on the fence side,
right?
Where you weren't working on all the gate side. But another good thing we did during this process is we realized we were really kind of Donnie's, some of his frustration is where he was being underutilized.
Yep.
And so Nathan said, "Okay, you've had these concerns with these crews. I'm not dealing with them anymore. These are your crews, You schedule the jobs. You get everything ready. You tell them where they're going. You approve their pay apps. And, man, Donnie's just
Yeah, he's killing it,
he's
right?
killing it. And it's taking another thing off of you. So
Well, and it goes
it's been
back,
awesome.
It goes back to what you said, to thinking about that idle hands type philosophy, right? Where there's not too much to do sometimes, but sometimes there's these gaps. And because we get bored or we get at the point where we're catching up to ourselves and stopping, that ability to start again, like, for someone like me that is in very internally motivated, I mean, that's a whole other debate and discussion we could talk about where does
Super
motivation
from
that, yeah, where does motivation come from? But on that standpoint, thinking about, I can turn it on and off, I'll be like, no, I just need to get it done, so we'll do it. It's not everybody's that way.
Correct.
And I think the biggest thing that I realized, because like I told you in the beginning, I wanted you to develop the system, but we never got to that point. And realizing that it's a system problem. And then since Randy talked to me a month ago, then we had our home and garden show. We have all this activity and flurry. And then I started looking at all the systems, and knowing that Tony's coming and Tony's going to look at everything. And I'm like, well, and I told him at first, I was like, you don't need to look at the fence side. We got that. It's airtight. And then I went back and looked and I said, well, I think so. And then realized that it isn't what I thought it was. And well, why? And Kyle Sullivan started working for us part-time, doing some sales for me and stuff.
Doing a great job.
He's killing it. But super talented guy. You fence guys out there that are listening to this podcast are probably banging your head against the wall, because we got a guy in here in less than a couple weeks that is actually able to go out and do estimates by himself and sell a fence and actually do it correct. How about that?
Yeah, but that's because you do have a good system in
I was going to say that. I was like, yeah, the one thing I do have a good system is just do this. Hey, come here. And so within 2 weeks, I was able to train Kyle competently and get him exactly the stuff. We were riding around together all day long. I was giving him every single thing that I knew that he would need as a baseline just to sell it, right? But not only to sell it, to understand what he was selling. Because where do most salespeople, especially that haven't built for a long period of time or never built, they're going to fail with the things that they don't understand.
What they don't see.
Don't see, right? So that's where I'm going through the yards. And even in front of customers, like pointing out things. And they're like, oh, the customer's like, there's a wall there? I'm like, mm-hmm. And I was like, but I have to show Kyle this. Because when that price comes back different than you're expecting as a client, you're like, oh, all right, so these are the things I'm teaching, and these are the things I showed them. So fun and exciting, but we start looking at everything and realizing, like, yeah, I do need a Tony Thornton.
But I will say, if I can interrupt just for a second, Kyle is very self-educated in sales and leadership.
Oh, absolutely.
So he's just not somebody off the street. He is a high-level salesman.
Well, which has helped me too. Because even in our downtime in between doing fence stuff, he's coming in saying, well, you realize that you have a problem in your company because of this. And one thing he had mentioned to me, which is big part of this update today, besides telling you that that Randy quit on me, was Kyle pointed out, you inspect what you expect. And for 2 years, I told Randy this morning. My training with everyone here is like as little as possible, and then go do what I told you to do, and I need to go on because I think people that have listened to the podcast know for a fact that my burden of business, and it has been this way with my previous employer till now, working with these subcontractors, is my burden is I view what we're doing is the support system. So like my work is the support system for everyone around me, right? So I don't look at the 4 or 5 crews that we have and all this stuff like that as just giving them work. I view the 6 people in the office, the 40 people in the cruise, and you're like, 40 people on 5 crew? What are you talking about? But I know their kids. I know their spouses. So I think about all these people that are impacted. So any second that I'm not selling or not moving the ball down the field, so to speak, I immediately am sitting there going, I am failing 50 people that are depending on me to do the thing that I know that I should be doing, right? So then when I come to find out and I start seeing these holes in my systems, air quotes, I'm getting mad at myself, but I think this is a really cool time, especially as we're not getting slammed on the phones and stuff like that, to introspectively go, this is what we need to do. Now we need to come back in. I need to do a better job of training. Like I always said, I didn't want to be one of those companies where you had people answering the phone that didn't know nothing about what we're doing, or talking to people. Like I'm talking about everybody on the team I wanted to have the most educated team on the planet, and I have 100% failed at that because we have people that don't know. They don't know what they don't know. So why would I expect them to ask something?
Everything you're saying is very true. And I think what bothers you the most about that is because that's what everybody else does. I mean, when I went to work for Benford, they handed me a laptop. My manager told me some part numbers, printed out some invoices with part numbers, and there you go. Go do your job. And so that's just part of our industry. And but I know you want to change that, and I think it's going to be helpful with Tony coming in because he's going to put these processes in place. And one thing I really think is cool is being this small of a company, if you can really reset and be able to put those processes in now as you grow, which you will, it's just going to be so much simpler for you.
For sure.
Because, and again, you got to realize your own gaps. Okay, is maybe I'm not the guy that should be the training. Maybe when I bring somebody on, maybe I bring on a guy like Tony and pay him for a week to sit through this person, or maybe you find that, Kyle is a natural leader and consultant, maybe he takes on some of those roles and responsibility of training. It's not like you're going to be training somebody every week.
Right.
But when you get a new person in that find somebody with their strength to spend time and shadow with them, because you can't do it all, Nate. You've been trying to do everything. That's if I find a fault with you, it's that. It's your greatest strength and your greatest weakness is because you can do everything. But you're going to hit a brick wall.
Right.
And that's what we don't want to happen. And then when you hit that brick wall, all these people depending on you are going to suffer too.
Right.
And then that will be twice as hard on you.
Sure. Absolutely. So there was a thing yesterday that someone put online about the moment you think you should let someone go or fire them or whatever is when you should do it. And I thought that was funny because of the stuff we're experiencing at the company, looking at each of us, myself, Donnie, Brenda, Lexi, Ashley, Kyle, even you, internally first going, where is everyone at and where are they going? And then realizing that it's not like that there is really something to that training component that we're talking about, that even a perceptive failure somewhere is not directly related to them.
But I mean, there's any given moment you want to fire anybody.
Right. I mean, yeah. But I just thought it was funny because I was sitting there thinking, we're on the other end of that. We want to keep everyone. Like, we want everyone to do their best. And we know the aptitude and the ability of everyone around the team is so high, right? You've seen that. Mm-hmm. Like, really, really good people that all have these different skills and these different things. But how do we get the best out of our people?
That Pat Liccioni's working genius, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, sometimes you've got this great person in the wrong position.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that, you know, if you've got an introverted person expecting high level sales or expecting them to interact with somebody on the phone,
Right.
right, and just have a conversation when they're so painfully shy,
Right.
you know, then you got to look back on, is that their fault or is that my fault? Well, maybe she'd be better balancing a checkbook than she is talking on the phone, you know,
Yeah.
or he or whoever the
Yeah.
case may
Yeah.
be, you know. So I think that's as hard as it is to, when you have good people, now don't get me wrong, and you know this well as if you know me as good as anybody, there's a time to fire somebody. Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely.
Right.
You know, but you know, you can knee jerk and make a huge mistake because maybe you just had them in the wrong spot. It's sometimes you just got to have that conversation.
And you know
what makes you unhappy? Why are you so uncomfortable?
And what's funny about you saying that, this is the circle of and being blessed with a lot of really good people around here. You say that literally the same thing Kyle said. And then, you know what I'm saying? And then talking to Donnie and all these things, like we all figure out the same, like we're coming from the same area from different angles, but nonetheless. And it was the same thing like with Kyle. You know, we were talking about some things when I mentioned to him about doing sales, and he was mentioning some things and talking to me about maybe helping with some areas of the training and some other stuff. And I said, what are we talking? Hold on a second. I said, no, the biggest area I could use actually help is my strength. But my strength is in Brenda and Lexi had been saying the same thing. You know, I had been getting to a point where the residential people coming in were a burden, or my attitude would lead on to a burden, to the point where the ladies would say, we know you just want to do commercial. And, you know, and I heard him say that and I'm like, what? I'm like, really? And we've talked about it. I'm like, yeah, well, I do personally, but you know, nonetheless, like yesterday morning, I went out and met with a couple, and it's a $20,000 residential job. Well, guess what? We're going to sell that job. And the reason why is because I like doing it. Surprise, surprise, right? You know, like I don't hate it, you know, but at the same time, you know, it's a process, but that's what I talked to Kyle about. I said, man, if you could do these things, if I could teach you this thing, if I could already do what I know to be true, and I've already been telling people on the podcast that I could take someone that knows nothing about fence, and within no time, it has to be the right person, et cetera, but to be able to do that and prove that we've done it now and he's doing it, I mean, it's only going to continue to grow.
Absolutely.
And he's only working part-time. Like, he's just helping me out, man. You know, like, this ain't like a career change for him or anything like that, you know, much to the chagrin of some of his family probably. But, I mean, you know, whatever. You know what I'm saying, Randy?
I do.
Like, it's like there's a time and a place. There's the connection. And we need to be, especially as a business owner or a manager or leader, you need to be fluid. You need to figure out those things. But I think that introspection, that's what this episode's all today about. Again, talking about the changes that are here, but the fact of I'm really looking back in. March 4th was 2 years full-time, March 4th, 2024. And it was really funny that day. My wife called and she was like, hey, congratulations. I'm like, what happened? Like, we're getting ready for the Home and Garden Show. And she said, well, you've successfully made it 2 years. On your own, you know, she's doing the same thing, those air quotes again, on your own. Yeah, right. But you know, 2 years out is better than some. She's like, now you got to make it 5. And I'm like, yeah, I know. You know, we start talking about the statistics of things and stuff, but nonetheless, I mean, we're going the right direction. We're growing at still a rapid speed. It's tough. Randy's seen it. It's brutal most days, you know, in the process of changing over our system, like our CRM and how we're doing it. I was dealing with, we were actually talking to Matt Sharadana with Elite Technique. He is customizing things left and right on his platform. Him and I had a knockdown drag out for an hour and a half yesterday about, no, that I will not accept Like I showed him how we do things in Job Nimbus currently. And he was like, oh, I could just see him like going. And I said, so we're going from this simplicity to this very detailed thing, but I need them to mesh. Like I need it to be simple, but I need it to have the complexity on the back end to do A, B, C, D, F, all the way down the row. And which he can do, but it's just like he's getting in my head, I'm getting in his head to try to, and I appreciate, I think having strategic partners like that, whether it's our suppliers, whether it's the softwares we use. And I really feel, Randy, I really feel blessed that once you came in and saw some of the things that we set up originally, and then bringing on Kyle. So since you two are my last two hires, him saying the same things, he's like, dude, some of this stuff is incredible. And I'm like, really? Thank you for saying that. Because there's so many days where, we're getting beat up. The company
is like, amazing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, but how we use the tools too.
Right.
Like we've figured these things out over time. And even when my boy Donnie's fighting me on some of these things, how much efficiency we can get out of these things and just tweaking them to make it work within the ecosystem that we're creating and knowing that it is going to change.
I'll tell you, and what's really cool about what Nathan's done, I mean, you can go back and look at these jobs, and any of you guys that are access control guys, I mean, you can go back and you can see on Mrs. Jones' job that her dip switches and her radio receiver are X.
Right.
So when she wants to buy more transmitters, you preset them for her, and she's just happy, or the lock on their gate code is X. And I mean, it just saves so much time. It spoiled me rotten.
Yeah.
I don't know how I would do it without it now. It's just, and I don't have access to or to Company Cam anymore, but I'm still helping Nathan on cleaning up a few things. But I can go into Job Nimbus and the pictures are there. Mm-hmm. And it just, so if I'm out and about on a sales call, if I'm anywhere in the area, I'm like, hey, I can swing by there real quick. It won't take me 5 minutes because I have all the information right here. Mm-hmm. And it's just been amazing. Yeah. That is a great tool, guys. And this elite technique is going to take it all to the next level. I am 100% on board with what Nathan's doing on this because it's going to now, because one of his other estimating tools he never used.
Right.
Because it didn't integrate as well. It was clunky. And it's caused, once this other process goes in, now when he hires these fence estimators or whatever, it's even going to be simpler. Mm-hmm. Actually, Kyle is going to be, oh my gosh. Donnie's going to be, oh my gosh, because now they'll just bring in the material list instead of trying to figure it out. It's just going to be amazing.
And it's done.
Good
so
stuff.
We're excited. We're excited about the future. I'll be back in a month or two. I'll bring Donnie on. We'll see how the end of the spring season is going and everything that's going on there. But
hey, can I plug my new company?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, buddy.
So I went to work for Shiloh Fence and Gate Supply in Springdale, Arkansas. I am their outside sales rep. It's a brand new company with a brand new facility. A very experienced general manager. A lot of you guys will know Roger. He's been in this business forever. Rick Barrows and Vicki Jones, our owners, they've invested. Everything's brand new. We got brand new forklifts. We got brand new trucks. We got a brand new building they'll be moving into in about a month. We got $1.4 million worth of inventory sitting on the ground. Chainlink, Ameristar. We have a few gate operators we're working there, but right now we're concentrating on the fence side of it. Give me a call. We want to help you. It's about a 100-mile radius from Springdale right now. So, and I live in Tulsa, so we're on the west end of it. But those of you that listen, if we can help you, please call me. Most of you guys got my information. It's ShilohFenceSupply.com.
ShilohFenceSupply.com, 479-435-4414. So yeah, we're gonna wrap this thing up, put a bow on it. Man, we just appreciate your service and your time.
Hey, thank you for the opportunity,
Randy.
Nathan. You're a good buddy.
I appreciate that.
I ain't going anywhere, guys. Me and Nathan, we talk constantly, and he's one of my customers.
Yep, that's right. Buying fence, buying gates, buying all sorts of stuff. So we're excited. We will see you guys on the next round, probably in a month or two. Peace
Out.